for me, there were a lot of very interesting findings, but my interest is myeloma. So I was focusing on myeloma-related things. And as you know, for myeloma, it's not just stem cell transplant, but it's also CAR T cells. So I would like to highlight three things. One, from my center, and you have already spoken to my colleague, Iago Nieto. He presented our data with Gemcitabine, Busulfan, Melphalan, and Panobinostat as conditioning regimen in high-risk or relapsed refractory patients. It's an intense regimen, but we did see encouraging results in very high-risk patients and relapsed refractory patients with a progression-free survival of almost 4 years in high-risk patients. The second thing was the ide-cel, a couple of abstracts. So one is the KarMMa-3 study, which is now published, showing that ide-cel is associated with better PFS in after 2 to 4 prior lines of treatment. So positives are there for everyone to see. I would like to highlight a couple of negatives that even though it's used earlier in the disease course, we're still seeing a progression-free survival of only 13.3 months, and there is no plateau. And the second thing which is of concern is a 3% treatment-related mortality, which is more than what we see with autologous stem cell. It is a very effective treatment, but there are some toxicities. Another thing that I want to highlight is that with ide-cel, the consortium of 11 centers, they presented their findings in patients with renal failure or renal insufficiency who had creatinine clearance of less than 50, and almost 40% of them had a creatinine clearance of less than 30. These patients were excluded from the original trials, but now what they were able to show is that even patients with renal insufficiency can benefit from ide-cel. And they had almost similar toxicity, things that stood out. They had longer duration of cytopenia, but they recovered within 3 months. And their response rates or toxicities and progression-free survival were comparable to patients who had normal renal function. So these were the three things I would like to highlight. One thing that I was interested in is many centers working on doing CAR T cells as outpatient, and we'll be seeing a lot more of that.